I think I was planning to speak to the empty room. I was like, what's happening? Where is it? Are you still going to record me? It feels weird and so on. So thank you for coming. Um, so my name is Harshad. Kanvinde. I Good morning, everybody. Anyway, I'll talk. My name is Harshad Kanvinde. I run supply chain practice at Slalom Consulting. So Slalom is a 14,000 people, $3 billion revenue global consulting firm. We do both business as well as trade consulting. I joined them 8 years back, and at that time we were not doing anything in supply chain, and I started the business from scratch. Before Slalom, I was at Amazon in the fulfillment by Amazon business, where I ran the transportation and inventory allocation for North America, so US and Canada at that point, both the product side as well as day-to-day operations. Lots of long-term innovation as well as fielding the calls from sellers who can't get their truck in the warehouses. So fun times. If anyone wants to talk about Amazon, I think that has to happen over the peers, not here. Before Amazon, I was with another consulting firm, Ernst & Young, where I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to start a new business for them. It was a joint venture with Procter & Gamble. With P&G, the idea was P&G is great in manufacturing, new product development, can we productize that know-how and help other CPG companies, non-competing CPG companies. So ran that business for 5 years before moving to Amazon. So all in all, about 15 years in supply chain. I consider myself an accidental supply chain, and more and more I talk to other supply chain people. Everyone has similar stories. Somehow they kind of stumbled into this and they loved it and never left. Today's topic, the reason I talked about P&G and Amazon, my personal inspiration comes from those two places. So as we build the supply chain consulting practice at Slalom, I often very openly say that the inspiration comes from Amazon and P&G, not from McKinsey, BCG or any other consulting firm. So digital innovation in supply chain and digital innovation for resilient and agile supply chain are very near and dear to my heart. Lots of angles, right? So not just the technology, but people and process matter quite a lot. So we'll talk about that today. Okay, so the presentation is not working. We are just going to keep it on this and we'll talk. I want to make it interactive, so I'll talk for probably 10-15 minutes, open up for questions. But the key theme here is artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, some extent blockchain. A lot of exciting things happening from the technology standpoint, a lot of exciting things that help supply chain problems. But then the key question still remains. In my work over the last 15 years, and digital is not new, right? So we've been talking about digital and digital transformation for a long time. But all in my experience, hardly I see anything digitally transformed. So there are always these promises, and the promises are true. So it's not that you use AI machine learning for forecasting, demand sensing, it works. But organizationally, if you look at bigger, smaller companies equally, why do we not see a broad adoption of these technologies to solve supply chain problems when the promise is real? So that's what we want to dive deep today to an extent. So as I was saying, I've personally been involved in computer vision for improving quality and other use cases and so on. But I mean, the problem remains in silos. The best case scenario, you might have a director, a VP, his organization, her organization, we are making some progress. But overall, organization-wide adoption is still challenging. So why does that happen? And most of the times, you see that it's really hammer looking for the nail. So although there is this rhetoric that we should always look for customer, we should always look for real problems to solve, somehow something gets missed. So I've been thinking about this for quite a long time, and using those insights in my work. Overall, we all know this. Who is in the receiving end of the supply chains or supply chain practitioners. Supply chains are global, supply chains are complex, supply chains are messy. And that's the fact of the matter. It's not that you can wish it away. There are always going to be it's not even a chain, it's ecosystems most of the time. It's network. Multiple players involved and so on. But maybe this is human tendency. We want to simplify everything. So the way things are modeled inside the companies or the way we want to manage it, somehow that complexity gets missed. Somehow we always want these clean chevrons on the PowerPoints that there are suppliers and things are moving to the OEMs and things are moving to the customer. I wish that there is one system that kind of one thing to rule them all kind of thing. So the complexity somehow gets missed in the narrative internally, and what it results into is poor customer experience, value leakage throughout the supply chain, competitive blind spots, slow reaction. And the fun fact here is that poor customer experience becomes super obvious when you're dropping the ball for customer. If PNG is not delivering the order on time to Walmart, Walmart screams and then you take notice. But then the other things become the silent killers. The value leakage on the front end of the supply chain. Do you even know what kind of contracts you have with thousands of your suppliers, and are you managing those terms really well? Are you making sure that you have visibility into where your inventory is, how your assets are utilized, what your productivity is? Do you have that visibility? So value leakage happens and it becomes the silent killer. Competitive blind spots, the same thing. Big or small companies not having that visibility in your end-to-end value chain kills you and kills you silently, and the slow reaction. So overall, I think if I want to distill down, so supply chains are complex and messy. Somehow that narrative gets missed. In the last 5-6 years, we have been on this mission of what matters in supply chain is the agility in supply chain. So you want supply chains to be purposefully flexible, responsive, and fast. To not only to address disruptions. I mean, last 2 years it has become fashionable to say that agility in supply chain, we want it and so on. But we have been on this journey for even before that. And the motivation for agility in supply chain was primarily for the business growth. So supply chains not only as the back-end function, but supply chains, if you do it well, it can become your innovation engine that can give you ability to go after new customer demand faster, ability to open up new markets faster. So agility in supply chain is what really matters, and there is a trade-off with the cost. So supply chains traditionally and supply chain leaders traditionally have been focusing on just the cost aspect of it and maybe sometimes service levels as well. But agility really matters for business growth, and agility matters for disruptions, and there's a way to get that. So in our experience over the last 5-6 years, more and more in the last couple of years, three things we have seen matter the most. Do you know your business? So know is a pretty loaded term. Call it visibility, but it's not just the visibility into your inventories and visibility into your assets, but more importantly, do you have visibility into day-to-day operational decisions that are being made in warehouses, in manufacturing shop floor, in distribution hubs? That visibility and history of those decisions and history of that visibility matters quite a lot. And the second pillar for achieving agility in supply chain is predictability. Are you in a position to, and not just predictability in the form of can I forecast my demand, but more deeper than that. Do you know where your business is going, and are you in a position to plan those scenarios really well? And the third most important fact we have seen that most of the time get missed. Having visibility into your supply chain and even further having good predictability in supply chain, that's not enough. Do you have mechanisms to get those insights in the hands of people who are making those operational decisions day in, day out? A warehouse manager who is dealing with, who was expecting 10 trucks and got only 5 trucks, how to optimize those assets that are available today? Are there mechanisms for that person, for her to make the decisions really well in that real time? That becomes super important. So know, predict, and act. Those are the 3 pillars we have seen that Oftentimes, when I talk to chief supply chain officers or even chief revenue officers, CEOs, no one denies the fact that agility is important, makes sense, right? So we all want flexible and responsive supply chains. Don't ask me to spend money on it, but we all want that. Many times they're also spending a lot of money in visibility. Maybe it's oftentimes it's lots of dashboards lying around, but sometimes it's even deeper than that. But oftentimes where things fail is that act portion. Having visibility in the corporate ivory tower, some planners know everything, that's not enough. What are you doing for getting that visibility in the hands of the people who are actually making those operational decisions? Another key dimension here is technology alone is not the answer. We all intuitively know this, but just because, and that goes back to that earlier comment that I made, AI machine learning works. It works in, it's not even rocket, it's not sci-fi. It's happening today. We are bullish about it, but then that's not enough. You need organizational change, you need process improvements, you need data and technology. How do you think about that? All those three pillars are super important. And so the overall transformation, organizational transformation across all those operating levers is what matters. But then transformations are hard and most of them fail, right? So I was looking at some statistics and I think that it was so dismal that probably 11% or 10% of the transformations succeed. I would even challenge that and what do you mean by success, right? So if you really go deeper, really, I haven't seen any transformation succeed, like frankly. So most of them fail. So we know that tech is not alone enough, or people and process and tech and data, all those things are important. But it's super hard to do that, not only in big companies like P&G and Unilever, but even small organizations. When there are people, I think robo revolution, if it happens and people are not required, then probably transformations will work. But when there are people involved, large or small organizations, there are still challenges. And I'm going super fast. I think this topic is really broad. So, but let me finish this and open it for some questions. When we look into our experience and throughout, if I'm studying all these things as we work with different size and different scale companies, four key things what we have observed that why transformations are super difficult. Supply chains inherently are global and messy, but at the same time, supply chain problems are very local in nature. What happens in Brazil is not, so it's not that I have warehouse problems and solve it globally. Those common denominators don't exist. I think the nuances of the problems are so different in each location, so the problems are localized. You can't wish it away that I do something at I distill the commonality, I solve it at the enterprise level and boom, everything works. That doesn't work. But then how you solve things at the local level without breaking the bank. So that's where the problem comes. If you take the consulting partners or the product partners like SAPs, there is no business model that exists today, external engagement business model that you can take, you can give the enough tender care and love to each individual problem and spend 4 or 5 months, you can solve it, but you won't be able to scale it. So scale is another thing. Oftentimes, executive leaders in the companies, there's a lot of wishful thinking going on, right? So there is a lot of, I wish I can solve it at the corporate level. I can top down. Only if my people understand this is the right solution and get behind it, and then my problems go away. But scale, I think people need to start thinking scale differently. So a P&G $60-70 billion company can't solve all the problems at $60-70 billion level. Maybe there is a $500 million business and there is a nuanced problem. You can still invest into that and solve it, and that solution might never scale at the enterprise level because it's not going to make sense. And that should be still okay. And that mindset, I think there is a lot of mindset shifting that needs to be done for understanding scale differently. Then obviously the favorite firefight and hero worship. We all like that. We want heroes and everyone gets this feeling of we are doing, and supply chain is full of we are always firefighting. So that kind of gets in the way of really thinking hard. How do we think about digital innovation and what to do the right things? And finally, decision making. This is such a pet peeve for me. What I mean by that, many times what happens is there are problems and there are perceived solutions. Things are 80-20%, things are in the right direction, but then you get so many antibodies thrown at you because we slow things down so much. Hey, can we make another business case? Can we tweak this business case? And 4-6 months go and nothing happens. So decision making, if you want an agile supply chain, a flexible, responsive, fast supply chain, your decision making needs to match that pace. Like you can't have agile supply chain without fundamentally changing how we allocate budgets, how we make decisions on new things, and which problems to solve, how to solve those, and how do you enable your teams, empower them to kind of make those decisions in autonomous fashion. You can't have autonomous technology if you can't even figure out how to enable your teams to work in autonomous fashion. And personally, I learned a lot of things from Amazon. It was transformative experience and so on. And many times people, when talk about Amazon, talk about robots in the warehouse and AI machinery, that's not it, right? So ultimately, the crux of it is, do you enable your teams and small teams, give them independence and let them run fast? They are going to fail, but then you give the air cover so that they can continue to experiment and innovate and develop some boundaries. But at the same time, you're not throwing antibodies at them. And that's kind of the crux of why Amazon was able to do what Amazon did. To some extent, Google, Facebook, kind of same way. Those are not exactly transferable to every single organization. If it's as simple as that, then that would be a beautiful word. But the crux of the matter is that decision making, are you enabling your people to do that really fast? So the approach that we have often taken and being religious about it, and it's not easy. Oftentimes, starting with the real problem, and real problem, that's like easier said than done, because identifying what's the real problem and the way we define it is the real problem. If you solve it, it should immediately impact into revenue, cost, or cash. If it's not, it's not really real. If it's not really kind of at a place where you do something about that problem, otherwise you go belly up. It has to be that critical. Unless you have that urgency in the problem, you don't find the right solution and you don't get the right one. So finding the real problem, starting with that, rallying the troops behind that real problem, that's half the battle won. Then speed to value, not just POCs and pilots, but how can you deliver value in terms of revenue, cost, or cash. Some cases, customer experience, because not all the customer experience initiative are going to give you revenue, cost, or cash improvements immediately. It might take longer time. And changing the culture through that demonstrated success. I talk to so many internal innovation teams at these big companies, and oftentimes the rhetoric goes like, we are inventing so many cool things, and our people don't get it, so we need to spend more time on change management. I'm a believer in change management, but oftentimes the problem is you're not solving the real problems. If you solve the real problems that people are facing, people get behind that. Adoption is not often an issue. So if people are not adopting it, you really have to ask yourself this hard question: that are you going after the real things that people care? And it's not easy. Love this quote from Bezos is one of the investor meetings. I think he used that. But true disruption happens not in technology. True disruption happens in customer adoption. So inventing on customers' behalf, I think that's where things started. When you start inventing on customers' behalf, you identify the real problems, you work backward from those, and then the train starts. And some organizations, there are many leaders, there's a cadre of leaders that get this message. They understand it, and they're willing to shift the traditional way of thinking about technology, traditional way of thinking about transformation. But the crux is there that you have to focus on your customer. You have to really understand. Customers are not going to ask you for those things most of the time. You have to internalize the problem so well that you are in sync with that. You can invent on their behalf. So I think that's my presentation. I don't know how much time we have left, Andy.
We can take one question or maybe two.
So, thank you so much for the question. Can you explain how customer experience
Poor customer experience and influence. Yeah, poor customer experience, in my opinion, it's a result of your supply chain not being right. Something is missing, and what I meant by that earlier example. There is this wishful thinking that goes on that I wish my life was easier. I wish the supply chain is not as broken. And many times I get asked when the supply chain problems are going to go away. Like never. So supply chain inherently it's going to be always going to be messy. The mess might be different in different places. And the challenge is that unless you focus wholeheartedly on customer support, I'll give you an example. Uh, if faster delivery is the promise that I made to my customer, and somehow with my current technology stack and the current way I work with my shipping carriers, and it's not working, change it. Oftentimes, what happens, I don't want to change it because I'm comfortable with it, and then somehow it becomes this wishful thing that I wish some magic will happen. Technology might give let's do AI, machine learning, and predict better. All that stuff comes later. Your customer is hurting, and might be 10 customers hurting, not billions of customers. But you made a promise, you are not delivering it. Figure out a manual solution. Figure out a new carrier in the local market, which might not be the best rate possible. But when you're obsessed with this, so customer obsession has to be absolute. It's not when it's convenient. So if you're really obsessed with customer, you don't worry about my current technology stack, current way of working, current skill set. You change those things to deliver that experience. And if you don't do that, then that results in poor customer experience.
Right.